George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, that was William Henry Harrison's vice president, that became the president.
Wait, what number were we on when I started?
Well, William Henry Harrison was number 9.
Number 9, so what were we on, like 4 or 5? Just start over at 1!
What?
George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams.
How many presidents have there been?
Well, Barack Obama is the 44th president, but actually 43 men have been president because Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms. He was 22nd and the 24th. Anyway, so after Andrew Jackson was Martin Van Buren. Number 9 was William Henry Harrison, who died after a month. And his vice president, John Tyler, number 10, became president. Number 11 was James K. Polk.
Yeah.
He's outside.
Number 12 was Zachary Taylor. He also died in office. And number 13 was Millard Fillmore, who no one really knows either. So he was 13. 14 was Franklin Pierce. 15 was James Buchanan. Now, he was a sad sack of a president. He basically tried to avoid doing anything about the Civil War that was approaching. And he didn't even seek a second term. And then we have one of our best, maybe considered the best, number 16, Abraham Lincoln. Number 17 was Andrew Johnson. He sucked. John Wilkes Booth did a terrible thing when he assassinated Lincoln. I mean, not just, killing a person, which most people consider terrible, but I mean, he really screwed up the country by killing Abraham Lincoln and allowing a man like Andrew Johnson, who ended up being the first president impeached. Of course, being impeached did not mean he would be out of office, but simply that impeachment charges were brought against him. And he actually kept office by one vote. And that is in, Congress there. And so Andrew Johnson was 17. So 18 was Ulysses S. Grant.
Hey!
After Ulysses S. Grant, there was number 19, which was, here's where I get a little hazy, but I believe 19 was Rutherford B. Hayes. And then after him was number 20, who was James Garfield. Now, Garfield was
a cat.
He was the second. James Garfield was the second president assassinated in office. He was assassinated by a guy named Guiteau, who he was actually like some real crazy loony who thought he was going to get to work with the president. When the president constantly turned him down for a job, he shot the guy because that's what you do when people turn you down for a job.
I just rob them.
So then, then we had another vice president that came, and that was Chester Arthur. Now, he actually looked more like a cat than Garfield did, interestingly enough. In fact, Chester Arthur looked more like Garfield.
I make a joke and he turns it into a fact.
So let's see, so Arthur was the 21st. So again, the 22nd was Grover Cleveland. And this was during the age where presidents had these really cool mustaches and beards. And so after Grover Cleveland, we elected Benjamin Harrison, who is only remembered for the fact that he's the 23rd president between Grover Cleveland's 22nd presidency and 24th presidency, because after Benjamin Harrison, Grover Cleveland came in again to become our only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, meaning that they were not one after the other, but one and then another president, and then he came again. So that was 24. 25, I believe, was number 25 was William McKinley. He was the 3rd one to be assassinated. And Theodore Roosevelt became president upon his assassination, making him our 26th president. And then after Roosevelt left office, Roosevelt was one of our Republican presidents. After him, another Republican, William Howard Taft. He's the fat president that got himself stuck in the bathtub. And so he was number 27. Well, it was during this time that Theodore Roosevelt left the Republican Party and formed his own called the Bull Moose Party. so in the next election, he ran against Taft. He ran in the Bull Moose Party against the Republican Taft. And so what they pretty much ended up doing was splitting the vote so that Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat, ended up winning the election, which was our 28th president.
I know where he's from.
Afterwards, yeah, he was born in Stanton, very close to us.
Ooh, I know something.
So after Woodrow Wilson, what did I say he was, 28th? Yeah, 29th would have been Warren G. Harding. He was not very good. He was just... But fortunately, he died of a heart attack, and we had Sonic Cal. He didn't talk very much. Calvin Coolidge, number 30, I guess it would be. Yeah, Calvin Coolidge. There was actually a popular story that at some sort of party, this gal or guy, or the story's told different ways, but someone was with some friends and they said, I'll bet you I can get President Coolidge to say more than 2 words. And the story either goes that he overheard them or that the guy told him about the fact. And he simply said to the guy, you lose. After Calvin Coolidge became, okay, so 31. Yeah, 31 was Herbert Hoover, who was not really known much for his presidency, but known for having the same name as a very popular vacuum cleaner. And
he didn't invent the vacuum cleaner?
Pursuant to a vacuum cleaner, everyone thought he sucked because the stock market crash of '29 happened on his watch. That could be a lot of debate on whether how much he was really to blame for it. He didn't feel like he did very much, so in the next election he lost to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, also known as FDR, and he became our longest president, not in length, but in the time served, because he was the only president to have run for more than 2 terms, and he actually won 4 times. He died shortly after his 4th term began, and that's when Harry S. Truman, our 33rd president, took office. And an interesting fact, when Harry Truman left office, his popularity was at about 28 to 30%, the same as George W. Bush when he left office. However, today, many people look back at Harry S. Truman, and historians rank him among the top 10 most of the time. So even though he had a very low popularity as he left office, history looks probably much more favorably. So after Harry S. Truman left office, we had Dwight David Eisenhower. Also known as Ike. His campaign slogan was "We like Ike," and he was number 34. And then after Dwight David Eisenhower was John F. Kennedy, who, as we all know, his poppy, him and his sons, him and the rest of the family, he bought all of their political careers, basically. So we had John F. Kennedy, he was our 35th, until Lee Harvey Oswald blew half of his head off in Dallas, Texas. And that's when Lyndon Johnson became president. And he was famous for a Great Society program, which kind of took the basic ideas of the New Deal and basically made them a lot more greedy and say, well, we want this and we want that, and that's where a lot of our government spending kind of roots from. And that was Johnson. So after Johnson, we had Richard Nixon, who is famous, of course, for Watergate. Interestingly, if it had not been for Watergate, he probably would have gone down in history as one of our best presidents, because he was otherwise a very brilliant man, very good negotiating everything. But he just, the Watergate ruined him. So, and he's also famous for saying, I am not a crook, and then the tapes came out, and everyone knew he was a crook, and so he resigned. If he hadn't resigned, he very likely would have been impeached, and very good chance he'd have been thrown out of office, and gone to jail, so he resigned and was able to avoid prison that way, because, when you're the president, you get special perks even after you leave office. So then Gerald Ford, and as I said, before the tape started rolling, Nixon's original vice president was Spiro T. Agnew. I apologize, I don't know what the T stands for right offhand. But he had a little bit of a scandal as well, and he resigned. So Gerald Ford was appointed as Richard Nixon's new vice president. And then, when Richard Nixon resigned, Gerald Ford became the president. And he was never elected as either vice president or as president. And when he sought re-election in 1976, he lost to James Earl Carter, famous for his peanuts. And for some other things, I guess. He's also famous for talking about national malaise, sort of, but it's basically about America all down, including me. And he was a one-term president because Reagan came along in 1980, and he, you know, and Reagan was the one, he's the one that made America feel good about being America again. So that's one thing you could say for Reagan, is that while we kind of felt down because of Jimmy Carter, Reagan came along and hooked us up. And then Reagan, you know, he was very popular. He was also the oldest president we have had. He was 69 at the time he became president, and shortly turned 70 afterward. Now, he survived the assassination attempt and was also known for his quick wit and humor. In the 1984 election against Mondale, he actually answered the debate question regarding his age in a very unusual way. He said, I know a lot of people have attempted to make age an issue of campaign, but I will not do that. I will not, for political purposes, exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience. So that, even Mondale laughed at that. I don't know if Mondale normally laughs or not. He laughed at that, and so did everyone else. So everyone liked Reagan. Then he left office in 1989 when George Herbert Walker Bush, that's the father of the last George Bush, he took office. Unfortunately, he had promised, read my lips, no new taxes. And as it is, we did end up having new taxes, so that was a little unfair. And he only got one term when we had William J. Blythe, more commonly known as William J. Clinton. Actually, his middle name is Jefferson. William Jefferson Clinton took office, and he was largely famous for not having sex with that woman. And he really basically just came down to, well, how do you define sex? And I'm not going to get into that either. But he was the second president to be impeached, and he also won out as well. And then we had George W. Bush, who was number 43.
He's as smart as a peach. I said he's as smart as a peach.
And then we had George W. Bush, and then after George Bush left office, we had Barack Obama. And the question is still remaining whether he will be a second-term president or not. But I have named all the presidents in order.
Congratulations, you have no life.